Welcome to the Applicant Day presentation for the Environmental Sciences degrees at the University of East Anglia. My name is Dr. Katie Appleton. I'm the course director for this set of degree programmes, and what we offer is a BSc, a 3-year programme, a BSc with a placement year, makes it a 4-year programme, 4 years of academic study, which gives you an MSci, and 4 years of academic study with 1 year spent abroad. That's the options that we'll be covering in this Applicant Day talk. So possibly you've already decided that you'd like to study environmental science, or maybe you're still interested in knowing a bit more. This is what we think environmental science covers and why it's important. We are looking to produce graduates who really understand how the different components of the natural environment function, the underlying science between all parts of our Earth system. We're also interested in the political, social and cultural processes, the human element of the environment, how they interact with each other, how they affect our behaviour, and therefore how they affect the environment itself. It's important that we have people who can monitor the natural environment, who can alert us to changes that might be happening, make sure that we can manage things appropriately, and also communicate with people, communicate with members of the public, policymakers and so on, get across the important issues and any necessary action that we might need to take. And this means that if you study environmental sciences, there's lots of different directions you could take. You might even combine lots of different hats, as it were. So people may well think of physicists, chemists, biologists, people understanding the really fundamental science about how the environment works, ecologists and geologists, more applied science, meteorologists and so on. But don't forget the human side as well, the political scientists, the policy analysts, the social scientists, the people who understand human behaviour at an individual and a societal level, and people who communicate. There's lots of different things wrapped up in environmental sciences, lots of different directions that you could take it if you decide to come and study it with us. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is the amount of flexibility we offer in our degree programme. And the structure that we offer does allow a lot of choice within it, and also to some extent, as far as possible, we will allow transfers between degree programmes as well. So once you get to UEA, if you change your mind, have a chat with us. It is possible to kind of change things slightly within your degree programme. So this is our basic degree programme structure. Some people come in on a foundation year, which I've labelled as year 0 there. Most people come in from A levels or equivalents into year 1. And the different colours here, blue represents compulsory elements and yellow represents optional elements. So year 1 is completely compulsory. There's no choices to be made in environmental sciences in year 1. It's all about getting everybody coming in with their range of different previous qualifications up to the same kind of speed and onto a level playing field that will support them as they go into year 2. Year 2 is then completely wide open. You can choose any of our year 2 modules. As long as they don't clash in a timetabling sense, you can put together the degree that interests you. Then following on to year 3, this is the point that you would graduate. If you're taking a BSc, you can see there's a little blue cap on that box that represents the fact that there is a compulsory project representing 1/3 of the module credits for year 3. However, the topic of that project is still entirely up to you. So it is still really a kind of free choice, but all of our students have to do an independent project. Some students will carry on to the MSci, and this also has a compulsory project. This time it's worth half of the credits for that particular year, so you can see a bigger blue band there. But again, the topic is up to you. You might choose to follow on from your year 3 project. You might choose to do something totally different. It's up to you. It's a chance to get a bit more in depth working one-to-one with a supervisor. I've got more information about the project later on in the presentation. These are our companion degrees, the other degrees that we offer in the School of Environmental Sciences. You can see geology with geography there with the dark text and the filled in arrow. That is certainly possible to switch to during or just after year 1. If you decide that geology is more your thing, you want to specialise in that, you can switch over because the first years are the same. For those other degrees shown in grey with the dashed arrow, their first years do differ slightly from environmental sciences. They will have some more specialist modules that are different to ours, and so transfer is less easy between them. But if you think you really do need to transfer, then by all means talk to us and we will see what is possible. But just as a warning, it's not quite as easy to transfer between those degrees and environmental sciences. Sticking with what environmental science offers, if you choose to do a placement year, that takes place in between your academic year 2 and your academic year 3. So it's a 4-year program, but I've called it year 3 because you come back and take modules that year 3 students will be taking. Placement year, again, I've got more information on that later on in the presentation. And finally, the option to do a 4-year MSci with a year abroad. That is the academic year 3 spent abroad. You'll see that one is completely yellow. We don't put any particular restrictions on what you can take at the university abroad. And also there is no independent project in that year for our students because it's tricky to supervise when people are abroad. We'd rather they focused on making the most of the opportunities that that particular university offers. And then you would come back and you would do exactly the same modules and project as MSci students who've spent the whole 4 years at UEA. So that's how the structure pans out. In terms of what and how you study, well, I mentioned then we've got this comprehensive compulsory first year to ensure everybody gets a taste of everything across all the disciplines that we offer. So we have first year modules covering earth sciences, covering sustainability and ecology, covering chemistry and physics of earth systems and so on, plus skills modules including maths or quantitative skills, and research and field skills plus statistics. So this caters for the fact that we might have some students coming in with qualifications focused in the sciences, other students coming in with geography and other more humanities type subjects. And so we need to just make sure that everybody has the key skills they're going to need for year 2 and beyond. These are some of the topics that you could study. They're by no means all of the modules that we offer. Hopefully the abbreviations do make sense. You can find more information on all of our modules on the UEA website. If you go to the page for these degree programs, you can see the modules that are offered and see some small descriptions. What I've done here is I've put them in just into these boxes to try and headline what kind of topics they cover, but several of them will span across multiple topic areas. So for example, looking in the biodiversity box at the top, you've got biodiversity, conservation and human society. It's not a purely biodiversity module. We do consider the human impacts on biodiversity, the impacts of development, pollution and so on, and the management, how you can undertake management on conservation areas and so on. Skills and processes in the bottom middle box there, they would support lots of different modules. So earth science skills, that would support any earth science module that you want to do. Geographical information systems, relevant to more or less any topic area within the school. If you can put it on a map, you can put it into a GIS. And so we have students from a wide range of interests taking that particular module. The modules that you see in blue, they are the ones offered at MSci level. So if you're taking a BSc, you wouldn't get access to those particular modules, but if you're taking a fourth academic year with us, then they are the kind of modules that would be on offer to you. Again, they're going into things in a bit more detail, working at that higher level. How we teach things, well, looking at the pictures on the right hand side there, the bottom left one, possibly what you think of when you think of university teaching, sitting in a big lecture theatre, lots of people, and yeah, there will be taught elements like that, but we mix it up. We have a lot of different ways of teaching students on our courses. So for example, top left there, we have people outside. You can't do environmental sciences without getting outside. That's something I would stress. I would really say that you do need to come prepared from as soon as you arrive at UEA to spend some time outside and be comfortable, whatever the weather. But we've got this amazing environment around us on campus and further afield. We certainly make use of that. I've got some more information on field study coming up in a couple of slides. We've got excellent laboratory facilities. You can see bottom right there. In fact, we've had a new science building with state-of-the-art laboratory facilities built, just opened in the last academic year. Really great place to work and study. I really enjoy teaching in there, and that's where a lot of our modules would have their lab-based teaching. Finally, you might be looking at the top right, wondering what on earth these people are doing. How does that relate to teaching? Well, this is something that our colleagues in the environmental social sciences have come up with. They came up with ways of including theatre and drama in some sessions to communicate some of the concepts, some of the ideas around human behaviour, human outlooks on the environment, how people believe we should or could interact with the environment, how they prioritize things and so on. And by exaggerating and creating some stereotypes and bringing things to life, they really help to get the messages across. This is something that's been really well received by students and has also received a National Teaching Fellowship Award as well. So that's something recognised on a national level as being a piece of innovative and excellent teaching. So we're using all of these different ways of teaching, getting information across, of getting our students to work with the information and really kind of build up their understanding and learn to apply it and to synthesize and communicate their ideas back to others. That's one of the reasons that we have a big piece of independent work in the final year to really bring all of these skills together. In terms of contact time, modules, all of the modules in environmental sciences apart from the project modules are 20 credits. You would take 120 credits per year, equally balanced between the semesters. You can't choose to overload one semester for less credits in the other one. A typical 20 credit module in years 2, 3 or 4 would consist per week of 2 hours of lectures and 3 hours of something more hands-on, practical seminar or laboratory activities. We might also take field trips, use a bit more time on those, and make use of lectures with more interactive type activities as well. So it's really 2 single-hour slots and 1 3-hour teaching slot that the teachers on those modules will organise as they see fit. This equates to about 15 to 18 contact hours every week. The first year is slightly higher just because we're packing more information in, really trying to get everybody up to that level playing field. So you might see more like 20 to 22 hours in the first year, but still very manageable. Okay, so I mentioned going outside. You really do have to be prepared to do this. This is part of what we do. It's a real kind of core identity thing for an environmental scientist. And we rate it as really important because you're developing your practical skills. You're learning how to use new pieces of equipment, you're learning how to work in a group, you're learning how to manage your own time, run a little project, and so on. Experience real science, that's in quotes there. I think that refers to how do you cope when things go wrong, when things don't go as expected. You're working in the real world, it's a little bit messy, there'll be unexpected situations, it won't be like you thought it would be when you were in the lab or in the classroom planning out what you were going to do. How do you deal with those situations and make the most of it? This is where you really develop as a scientist. It's also a really good opportunity to make friends, to get to know people on the degree program that you might not have spent much time with before. Our first year field course is a very big group, but it does get split down into groups of about 25 for daily activities, so you get to spend time in smaller groups than you might usually do in the first year. And then field courses in the second, third and fourth year tend to be somewhere around the 10 to 20 student mark. So again, a really good ratio of staff to students and a good chance to get to know people. Our destinations include places in the UK. We've got meteorology going to the Lake District, geophysics has gone to the Lake District as well in the past. We've got earth science skills going to Wales, marine sciences, Scotland. Our first year field trip goes to Devon. And then we have a geosciences field trip that alternates between Greece and Spain. So if you're on a 4-year program, you can do both, one year, one the other, and also sustainable development to Spain as well. We also make not so much residential trips, but day trips, afternoon trips to parts of Norfolk that are relevant. We might go and see activities on farms to try and reduce their environmental impact, to try and improve water quality, for example. We might look at water management out in the fens. We might go and look at geological features on the North Norfolk coast, or go down to Breckland and Thetford Forest for ecological purposes. So lots of different locations that we're really well placed to make the most of. This is our first year field course. It goes to Slapton in Devon, to a Field Studies Council field centre. So we've got access to their facilities. That bottom left picture you see there, that's in one of their laboratories using their equipment. We also take a huge van full of our own equipment as well. So we've got access to really specialist stuff. Like, for example, at the top right, you can see some people doing some oceanography. That's on a boat. They're doing some sampling on the River Dart, looking at how various concentrations of things in the water change with distance from the sea. We've also got ecology, we've got soil science going on, micrometeorology, we've got access to a freshwater lake and canoes for various kinds of sampling and so on. So this is a big multi-activity field trip. Students are put into groups, do different things every day until the last couple of days when they'll do their own independent project in a small group that they've put together. And the great thing is that student feedback on this is that they really enjoy it. They make great memories. There's always stories come back from Slapton. They enjoy getting to know people, trying something different, visiting different places. Some of our students have never been to Devon or maybe Dartmoor in particular before, and they find that really interesting. So this is a good introduction to field environmental sciences. We think it's really important because it's a compulsory part of the first year programme. We do cover the travel and accommodation and meals, and then students add any additional expenditure if they want to on top of that, though there's not much opportunity apart from going to the pub. These are a couple of our honours level field courses. So Marine Sciences to Scotland tends to run every couple of years, but it is open to both second and third years. So you should get the chance to take it if all is running according to plan. Involves going up to Oban in Scotland to a specialist research centre and also hiring a research vessel. So actually getting out on the water and doing marine sciences. And one of the great things about this is one of the ways it's assessed is by students keeping a blog in small groups. So not only carrying out science themselves and working at a higher scientific level, but communicating their findings and their experience in everyday language to a non-specialist audience. So that's quite a nice different type of assessment going on there. Geosciences to Greece takes in area around Athens and also the volcanic island of Santorini. I'm sure they do work very hard. Some of these photos look a little bit like a holiday, but I know the students do carry out a lot of work out there, including a little project that they would do. That's the way that most of our field courses are assessed. Students would carry out an individual or a small group project that is either written up and assessed while they're on the field course or handed in shortly after they get back. Independent project work, I mentioned this way back talking about the structure of the programme. All of our students do at least one independent project. Those on the 4-year MSci at UEA will do 2. Those on the year abroad MSci will do a 4th year independent project, and those on the BSc will just do the 3rd year one. This is an opportunity for students to really get deep into an area of their particular interest, really look at the current research, find a little research gap, an opportunity to maybe apply something to a new area or a new topic, something that's within their grasp, but not just rehashing something or actually learning something new. Developing new skills, maybe working with certain kinds of equipment. So here's a student using some geophysical survey equipment. They might also be able to work with analysis equipment in the labs, learning new techniques and so on. And just generally practicing independent working. Some students will do a much more desk-based study, maybe collating together data sets that have been published by various organisations and bringing them together in a GIS to carry out some spatial analysis perhaps. It doesn't have to involve fieldwork and primary data. It often does, but it's not necessary if the project doesn't lend itself to that. The way we support this is you get access to one-on-one academic supervision. So early on, around about March time, students approach potential supervisors and get an agreement, sign a form to say this supervisor and this student will work together. It ensures that students have fair access to support from their supervisor because no supervisor is overloaded. We have a quota that we work to. The students can also get assistance from the technicians. They are very much expert in the equipment in our laboratories, and they can support student use of analytical equipment and other other equipment in the laboratories. We also do offer a small amount of financial support for project costs. The kind of things that this might cover is if you need consumables in the lab, if there's something that you're putting into a particular test machine that is a single-use piece of equipment, or maybe you're carrying out some kind of survey work, questionnaire survey work, and you need to make phone calls, travel to places, copy surveys, that kind of thing. There can be that kind of financial support as well. So it's something that the student very much comes up with the idea, writes a proposal. These are going to be due in about May for our current students, and then works with the supervisor to carry out and refine that proposal, put it into action, gather some data, collect data from different sources, work on the analysis through the autumn semester, and hand in the project about halfway through the 2nd semester of their 3rd year. Just to give you an idea of the wide range of student projects that we've had, covered in recent years. Some of these you can see the top one there, volcanic hazard on Santorini. That's something that's obviously been picked up in that geosciences field course. It is possible with enough forward planning to arrange to stay out after a field course is finished, just arrange your own travel to come back maybe a few days later and collect additional data. Climate modelling of the Pacific Northwest, that's a good example of one that came out of a year abroad. So we've got UBC in Vancouver, the Pacific Northwest University. That's a good example of making use of local contacts and local data in that area. I'm not going to go through all the other ones in detail, but lots of them pick up on things that students have come up across in modules. So constructed wetlands and acid mine drainage, that seems to relate to soil processes, and some of the geology type modules that we've got. Landfill gas migration, that's actually a good one that was done in conjunction with a placement provider. So that was a student who was working with the disused landfills team at a county council. They were responsible for mapping and monitoring some of the old landfill sites that are not used anymore, and therefore they were able to access data that's not usually publicly available, but they were able to do some analysis on that data. Not only did they get a good project out of that, but the placement provider got some additional information that they might not have had if they hadn't had a placement student. And the student also gets that additional motivation from working on something that somebody else is definitely going to be interested in. So that's something we definitely encourage for our placement students. Our year abroad, we've got links with various universities. I have a map on the next slide. And financially, the tuition fee is reduced. So it's down to 15% of the usual fees, represents the fact that you still have access to online and any kind of remote facilities you can access from UEA. So you still have access to your academic advisor and any other student support services that you want to access. You can use online library resources, you can use any software that you can use remotely and so on. But you're not actually at UEA using the teaching rooms and so on. So that's why the tuition fee is reduced. Students are expected to cover their own travel and living expenses for that particular year. And assessment happens at the overseas university, and we have algorithms that have been generated over the period of our partnership with various universities that let those grades be translated back to a fair value under the UEA grade system. So obviously, particularly North American universities tend to work on different kinds of systems, grade point averages and so on, but we have ways of translating those back so your performance is fairly reflected into your final overall grade for your UEA degree. So these are some of the places that we've been. Purple is places that students have been to recently, in recent years, and green ones are places that would also be available potentially to UEA students looking to do environmental sciences. Things do change year on year. We look at it as a pool of places available across UEA, so there might be people from different schools of study as well looking at going to some of the same universities as our MSci students. Particularly popular, as you might imagine, are universities in Australia and New Zealand, and also Canada and North America as well, fairly popular. But yeah, Australia and New Zealand, very popular with our students. And we would do it on a preference system where we would ask people to nominate multiple universities that they would want to go to, and then we try and organise it so that everybody gets as high a preference as possible looking at it overall. If you're interested in doing a placement year, it can be with a commercial company, it can be with local authorities and so on, lots of different examples. We've got some of those on the next slide. But essentially what you're doing is you're carrying a BSc degree over 4 years, and the third year, between 9 and 14 months of that is spent on a placement. So you could choose to start your placement as late as September and run it just for the academic year, so something like September to May, or you could start it as soon as you're finished with your exams in June and run it right through until the following September, just before you come back and start your 4th year. That will vary depending on where your placement is and who's it with, but just there is a range of possibilities. That's what it's good to be aware of. It's usually paid. Some people do choose to take on voluntary positions, maybe with non-profit organisations, maybe if it's an area that they really want to get into. That is up to you. You would have to be satisfied that you could support yourself. Maybe that would mean living at home with parents, or some other kind of accommodation that you can access personally. Most positions though are paid, and as I understand it, the average for the paid positions is about £14,000 over the year. So it's not a full graduate salary, but equally you're not taking on full graduate responsibilities. So it is a kind of fair, what's seen as fair for that particular job. It's possible to arrange your own placement. Well, in fact, everybody does arrange their own placement in that they will choose an interview for placements. The career service will help you to find them, but we certainly don't have a pre-approved list that you just pick from. You have to be out there competing against other graduates from UEA and other universities, other undergraduates. But that said, if you have connections, if you have contacts and you think you could make yourself a placement kind of informally at first, something that's not advertised to the public, by all means come and talk to us. It's just a case of making an agreement with that particular organisation as to what the placement will involve, what they expect of you, what we expect of them in terms of supporting the student, just to make sure everybody's happy and the work is at an appropriate level. As with the year abroad, you're working on a reduced tuition basis for this particular year. So again, 15% of the current fees is the way it's set out currently. And not only do you still have access to your UEA academic advisor, but you will be assigned a specific placement year mentor, so somebody who's very experienced in visiting students on all kinds of different placements, really understands how that side of things works, and you can chat to. They will visit you a couple of times, see how you're getting on, and just check that the placement is working out and helping you to get the most out of it. This isn't assessed in a graded way. There's nothing that contributes to your final overall qualification, but it is a pass-fail basis. So you have to complete some reflective work about how your placement is going, what you're learning, what you're getting out of it, and so on. And if you engage with that properly, that would be a pass on that particular module. And then you would proceed into your third academic year. These are examples of some of the recent destinations of year in industry students. So you can see we have utility companies. We've got Severn Trent Water in there. We've got local authorities, Norfolk County Council, Suffolk County Council has been in there as well previously. We've got academic type institutions like the British Geological Survey and National Oceanography Centre. So that might be more of a research focused placement. We have government departments like the Environment Agency, Nuclear Decommissioning Authority, and then we've got consultancies like Harrison, Arup, and so on. And also just general everyday companies. Adnam Southwold appears on there. Lots of companies these days have a sustainability team, a sustainability department. They're interested in how the business could be affected going forward by environmental change, particularly climate change. They are looking at how the business can reduce its environmental footprint to comply with various laws and regulations. And so there are lots of opportunities for environmental science students within all kinds of companies. It doesn't have to be an environmentally focused company for you to take up a placement there. So certainly think as widely as possible when you're looking for placements. So I've mentioned the 4-year MSci degree, just to kind of clarify that this is something you could choose to go on to. So during your 3rd year of your BSc, you might decide that you want to stay on at UEA, and provided your grades are good enough, you can just switch over to the MSci variant of the degree programme. What you come out with is seen generally as equivalent to a BSc and an MSc. There are a few differences in terms of the amount of credits taken and the amount of contact time on the MSci as opposed to an MSc, so you might want to check out the different options there. But basically it's an opportunity to carry on at UEA, to build on the extra level of study, strengthen your independent thinking, develop better skills, engage with more research, maybe get more into something through the independent MSci project, but staying at UEA, not having to move to a different university, get used to a whole different admin system, maybe a different city, find accommodation and so on. So it's a different way of getting that postgraduate level study. As I said, you would undertake an advanced research project worth 60 credits, and the modules that we offer at that level tend to offer greater specialisation. So you'd be building on things that you've done in years 2 and 3. All of our degrees are accredited. The BSc and MSci degrees in environmental sciences, they're accredited by the Institution of Environmental Sciences. This is a professional membership body. So they send out newsletters on what's happening in environmental sciences as an industry. So it might be useful in terms of identifying things, experience that it's useful to get on your CV, topics that it's useful to study, what's really becoming popular, what's becoming sought after in terms of job applications and so on. You can sign up for free student membership while you're on the programme, and then when you graduate you're eligible for associate membership. There is a fee associated with that, but it's up to you whether you take that up. And the kind of benefits you get include, as I say, newsletters and updates. There are a certain amount of networking events. They tend to be down in London. You can get information on training that might be relevant to you. And they offer things like a CV checking service. So they would be looking at your CV with a particular environmental science eye on what you have on there. If you're really going on in the environmental sciences, so particularly maybe in the consultancy or laboratory side of things, you might want to go on to achieve chartered environmentalist or chartered scientist status, but that would be something for you to decide in due course as you take that career option. These, excuse me, these are our current entry requirements. I'll let you read through those and won't kind of read them all out individually. If you're at all unsure about whether what you've got fits in with that, if you've got something slightly different, please do get in touch with the admissions team. They'll love to help you out and explain what fits with what, and they can always come back to us and ask questions as well. That's it. If you have any questions about what you've seen in this presentation, please do get in touch. I'm always happy to hear from prospective students, and I know the admissions team are too. So I hope that's been useful to you, and enjoy the presentation, and maybe I'll see you at UEA one day. Thanks very much for your attention.